What does it take to trigger your rage? Let's have a couple of scenarios, starting from the office. Are you triggered yet? No, really. How about now? If you have not been triggered at least a bit, well done. And if you have, well, imagine having to work in an open space office that prohibits the use of earphones or headphones during working hours. And on top of that, with coworkers you barely get along with. The annoying coworker who loves hearing his own voice, spewing vapid misogynistic nonsense. And that same dude who goes into explicit detail about his wild night out. Not the least bit concerned about being in a shared space with other coworkers who just want to get their work done in peace and quiet after traveling in a congested train for more than an hour just to get to the damn office. The day had started off well for Masami. Like the previous day and the day before, she woke up at exactly 4:30 a.m. before her alarm went off. She had made it her habit to set the alarm at 4:45 a.m. every night before bedtime, but never once did she let it go off. It is important for her to have a tiny sense of victory the first thing she wakes up. Like a clockwork, she would not linger on in bed for even a minute, but instead made her way downstairs first for a cup of warm water before making herself a cup of freshly brewed coffee. Her morning routine consists of a light exercise while watching the morning news. She would allow her coffee to cool down a bit before drinking it, and most of the time she would not eat anything. She wanted to have a hearty lunch, so the only way to avoid feeling sluggish by the end of the day is to skip breakfast. If asked why, she would tell people that she is on intermittent fasting. After that, she headed into the bathroom to clean up. Looking into the mirror, she could not help but to notice, on the right side, a few strands of white hair creeping out from the corner of her head. Remembering Michelle Obama's book, The Light We Carry, Chapter 3, Starting Kind, where her friend Ron would greet his own reflection over the bathroom sink with,
"Hey buddy!"
She will refrain from criticizing herself today.
"Masami, you're 40 and you look great,"
smiling while saying that instead. She genuinely loves her skin. Thanks to her high-paying job as an engineer, working for an overseas company based in Tokyo, she could now afford all the skincare she had ever wanted. Having this thought reminded her of why she had to wake up so early on a Wednesday.
"Now that's just ridiculous,"
she would scold herself every time she catches herself wishing for the pandemic to come back, just so she could work from home. Lately, like today, it happens almost daily, especially since the HR had made a fuss about her leaving the office 15 minutes too early, once or twice a week, for the past 2 months. The only reason why she would leave at 3:45 p.m. is so she could attend a conference call at 6 to 7 in the evening, from home, at least once or twice a week, with her colleagues in Europe, which has been going on for the past 2 months. According to the HR, it was wrong for her to leave before the core hour of the office, which is from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Why did he need to make a big fuss about this? And even going so far as to complain to my boss in Europe without even talking to me about the whole situation. How ridiculous.
The problem had thankfully resolved thanks to her boss in Europe, who understood the whole situation and did not feel the need to be petty. As somebody with a strong sense of justice, Masami felt deeply wronged by the accusation. She had yet to receive any justice, as not only did she not get an apology from the HR, he had also refused to address it directly with her. He had gone on to pretend that nothing had happened, even after sending a mass email to everyone about the importance of abiding by the core time, and worst of all, making Masami as an example. His passive-aggressive behavior And the recurring memory of what had happened had led to a deep resentment, which only grew by the day and had somewhat turned into a rage. What makes things worse is the fact that Masami would be the first to arrive at the office at 7:30 a.m. every single day, even before the next person, who would arrive at least 2 hours after her. On top of that, the HR, who had complained about her going home too early, would himself arrive at 10 a.m. sharp every day. How hypocritical, and what a way to set an example, she thought. He would arrive at the office panting, indicating that he had been running to make it on time to arrive no later than 10 a.m. As if putting himself on a higher moral ground than someone who is 5 or even 10 minutes late. It did not help that Masami's desk is closest to the entrance, making her bear witness to this ludicrous behavior every single day, whether she likes it or not, thanks to the open-plan office. Amidst the brewing hatred of what had happened, the flashback from the past of him commenting on her new haircut and choice of clothing a couple of times, and even going as far as to feel the fabric of her blouse, incensed her. She wished that she had been more spontaneous and had told him off immediately when that happened. Unlike previously, where she would force an uncomfortable smile, it is now beyond her ability to forgive him. It made her feel harassed. Was it even appropriate for him to comment on her looks? She knew that it was definitely wrong for him to touch her blouse. Imagine Masami holding onto this entire grudge at barely 5 o'clock in the bitter and cold winter morning. Her train of thought spiraling into hatred almost every day, mostly for men. The fatigue of carrying the burden of being the only woman in the entire engineering department of her company had somewhat taken a toll on her mental health. Of course, she is careful to make sure that nobody would know about this. The annoyance she felt throughout the years had turned into a rage, as she imagines herself trying her best to look good for work before stepping out of the house, only to get into a train full of men who look like they should have retired 10 years ago, shoving their archaic choice of mass media, i.e. the newspaper, into her face as if she did not exist. The entire journey to Tokyo, where her office is, for the past 10 years. In her mind, these men have probably never lifted their fingers to help with the housework. She imagines their wives greeting them by the doors when they get home from work, and serving them like kings at home, with hot and freshly cooked food for dinner every day. Meanwhile, Masami, who must work twice as hard not only today, but also from the very beginning, had managed to crawl out from the traditional expectations of a woman in the Japanese society. However, as her naivety fades over the years, she finds herself not much ahead of all these men, but in fact far from that. She is still perceived as being less and not even equal to the opposite gender. For her, this was evident when the HR had made a remark about her desk being untidy, when she had left only a few papers lying around, all the meanwhile turning a blind eye to the men whose desks are filled with piles of papers, and some even with empty bottles. Not wanting to stoop low, she had refrained from making a comparison, and instead cleared up her work desk so clean and empty that it seems like no one was working there if she was not sitting there. Always being the only woman in college and in the workplace, Masami has had years of practice of being stoic, level-headed, and to show little emotion. For an emotional woman is almost never accepted by society. She will be deemed an angry woman, one who cannot control her emotions, and certainly, by all definition, not suitable to be working in a stressful environment like an engineering department where important decisions are made. On the other hand, if a man had shown the same emotion, he would be deemed a passionate man, an engineer who dedicates his life in the field of his profession. Can you see now how easy it is to trigger the rage of someone like Masami? Can you empathize? She is after all the product of our society, to some extent, whether you like it or not. I guess as long as Masami continues to keep everything to herself, remain stoic and obliging, nothing bad could go wrong. At least not to the people she works with. She knows not to shit where she eats. After all, your thoughts do not define you, your actions do. So, every morning, she has already made it a point to kill several people in her hate. The coworker who stomped his feet while walking past her. The one who leaves the shared cabinets and drawers unclosed after opening them. The one who coughs and sneezes without closing his mouth. Did we not just go through the worst pandemic in the history of modern man? Masami would think. And most of all, the HR who would step foot into the office at 10 a.m. sharp while panting, so proud of himself to make it on time, abiding by the call hour. Her days would go on like this. There were only 2 good and respectable men in her whole department, she thought. They made life bearable, and one of them is her boss. Because of this, and the handsome monetary compensation she receives, never once has she thought about leaving the company. Because even if she does, there will be other insufferable men working in other companies too. Today, like the previous day and the day before, she left the office at 4 p.m. sharp. She made her way to the train station feeling a sense of relief, and a tad bit proud of herself for maintaining her professionalism and stoicism, despite the built-up resentment in her. If she was being totally honest, it has always been a fear of hers that it would turn into an uncontrollable rage one day, resulting in her acting up in the office. Who knows when it will come out? And what she would do in the heated moment of rage. The trains from Tokyo are usually not packed before 6 p.m. daily. So Masami would always be able to find a seat on her ride home, which takes slightly more than an hour to reach. Even if the train is more packed than usual, there would always be passengers getting off at the next few stations ahead. The rule is that, if the person sitting in front of where she stood gets off, the seat would then be hers. A few times, however, her seat had been snatched from her, from those standing beside her. The snatchers would bow as a sign of gratitude, despite not asking for her permission and getting an approval from her before sitting down. When this happened, she would usually let it go. She had been sitting down the whole day in her comfortable office job anyway. Who knows if the person who had snatched her seat might have stood up the whole day at their workplace. She would like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Not today though, when a man who had so brazenly wanted to snatch her seat, Masami wasted no time in blocking his way. This had resulted in them standing side by side with him, scowling down at her. But because Masami was already standing in front of the seat, there was no way that the man could sit down. She has had enough of being a pushover at work, and in the train even after work, certainly not by a man. Little did she know what was about to come. Despite winning the battle, she was about to lose the war. Not too different from Masami, except for the gender part, Daichi has had about enough from the women in his life. From his overbearing mother to his manager at the workplace, who happens to be a woman who would nitpick on every single mistake of his, in the kitchen where he works as a sous chef. Not only that, but his surmountable hatred for women has also evolved from the fact that most of them would give him a disgusted look because of the way he smells, after spending many hours slaving away in the kitchen. At least that was what he has been telling himself. And now, a well-dressed woman who looks like she had been sitting down all day long in an office, had so brazenly taken his seat and had even given him a nasty side-eye to boot. He could feel the rage from within him. Who the hell does she think she is? Daichi thought. Just because she was born into privilege, she thinks that she is more deserving of a comfortable life than me. Getting to sit down to go home to her 100 million yen house, he imagined. He decided to make her ride as uncomfortable as he could, by shoving his backpack into her face. And not only that, but to place his elbow above her forehead, short of elbowing her face, all the while scowling at her, the entire journey. Masami, whose life is not exactly a bed of roses herself too, was ready for a fight if the guy had suddenly decided to do more than what he was already doing to her, a public harassment. Masami overcame with relief when she realized that the man was about to get off at the next stop. However, not wanting to be complacent of her own safety, she was ready to take a video of the guy, in case anything untoward happened. Her gut feeling was right, because just as the doors of the train opened, he turned one last time to look at her while stepping closer, seemingly wanting to give her his peace of mind before getting off, when suddenly, out of sheer panic, Masami raised her phone and started recording the man. Only, instead of recording him, a loud shutter sound could be heard. She had instead taken a picture of him. To comply with the Japanese law, shutter sound on smartphones is activated while taking pictures. This is to prevent people from secretly taking upskirt pictures, or in general, any perverted pictures in public. Masami could see the burning rage on his face, but to her surprise, he had decided to step out without saying a single word. She got back home safe and sound that evening, with his picture still on her phone. She studied his face in the picture, and chills ran down her spine. The next day, just like the previous day and the day before, she wakes up at exactly 4:30 in the morning. Again, before her alarm went off. She repeats exactly what she does every day before heading off for work. The only constant change for her is the news. And today, while waiting for her coffee to cool down just like always, she stood in front of the TV while doing some light exercise.
Breaking news. Police in Kawasaki are investigating a deadly stabbing that left a woman dead near the Kawasaki train station yesterday evening. The suspect, believed to be a man in his 40s, was caught holding the knife used in the stabbing, not far away from the crime scene. He is believed to be working in a restaurant in Tokyo and, when asked, told the authorities that the knife used in the murder was taken from the kitchen where he works as a sous chef. Further investigation is still ongoing, but according to several witnesses, the man had suddenly ran amok before stabbing the woman.
And there, on the TV, the same face that is still on her phone. She could not believe her eyes. Masami's blood immediately ran cold when she noticed that the murder had taken place at the train station, where she would get on and off every day for the commute to the office. Did the guy not get down at the previous station? Masami was 100% sure that she had seen him getting off the train at the station before Kawasaki, so how was it possible? That day, she had to call in sick. She was indeed sick to her stomach when she had learned of the truth, as more eyewitnesses had come out to give an account of what had happened yesterday evening. According to them, in the CCTV footage that was recovered, the man had apparently changed his mind and got into the train again, but on a different carriage, just a few seconds before stepping out of the train that evening. In the carriage, it was seen that he had wanted to make his way into the next carriage where Masami was, but had failed to do so. Apparently, the carriage was packed with a baseball team from the local school district who had just gotten back from a match that day. Upon arriving Kawasaki, Masami had somehow by miracle avoided being caught by him and had managed to arrive home safely. Masami knew that she had escaped death yesterday, but at the expense of another woman. That day, unlike Masami, who was still capable of controlling her rage, killing people, only in her head, Daichi's rage had reached the level of a breaking point. Masami knew that she had escaped death at the expense of another woman. Now, she wonders, what does it feel like for Daichi? What does it feel like for her if she too stabbed people to death? After all, your thoughts do not define you, your actions do. Thank you for watching and subscribing. For those who haven't yet, please subscribe to stay tuned.